Hello, hello! Pete's Packs here, and we're back with Throwback Thursday, episode number 43. This week we have the Sydney 2002 World Championships decks. This is Carlos Romão, who was the world champion in 2002. So let's get started. Now this one is a little bit of an issue in that kind of stuck to the box. It's all right. That happens with some older products like this, especially if they're stored in a humid place. I believe this copy came from Florida. This is just one of those things that happens with older products. You can see that. Completely removed the ink on the bottom. All right. So let's see. Carlos Romão, world champion. Romão's blue-black Pschatog deck was the defining deck of the tournament. A control deck at heart with lots of card drawing and counter magic. It wants to stall an opponent until it can play a devastating upheaval and Pschatog on the same turn. Very nice. Let's take a look at Carlos's deck. All right, Carlos Romão, Pschatog. Main deck, creatures, 4 Nightscape Familiar from Plane Shift, 4 Pschatog, Odyssey. Spells, 3 Chainer's Edict from Torment, 3 Circular Logic from Torment, 4 Counterspell from 7th Edition, 3 Cunning Wish from Judgment, 3 Deep Analysis from Torment, 3 Factor Fiction from Invasion, 3 Memory Lapse from 7th Edition, 4 Repulse from Invasion, 2 Upheaval from Odyssey. And then for lands, we have 2 Cephalid Coliseum from Odyssey, 1 Darkwater Catacombs from Odyssey, 10 Islands from Invasion, Odyssey, and 7th Edition, 4 Salt Marsh from Invasion, 3 Swamp from Odyssey, and 4 Underground River from 7th Edition. Then for the sideboard, we have 1 Coffin Purge from Odyssey, 4 Duress from 7th Edition, 1 Factor Fiction from Invasion, 1 Gainsay from Plane Shift, 3 Ghastly Demise from Odyssey, 1 Hibernation from 7th Edition, 1 Mana Short from 7th Edition, 1 Recoil from Invasion, 1 Slay from Plane Shift, and 1 Teferi's Response from Invasion. Nice. We have our blanks. Put over here. Collect all 4 championship decks. Relive the excitement of the 2002 World Championships with these 4 commemorative decks. Carlos Romão, World Championship. Romão's blue-black Pschatog deck was the defining deck of the tournament. A control deck at heart with lots of card drawing and counter magic. It wants to stall an opponent until it can play a devastating upheaval and Pschatog on the same turn. That's this deck. And then last week we had Samhan Hao, quarterfinalist, who was playing Squirrel Opposition. Week before that we had Brian Kibler with his Red Zone 2K2 deck, which was a Naya aggro deck. And before that, Raphael Levy in 16th place with Levy's blue-green Le Wandergoose deck, which was a variant of Madness and Threshold. So, we have the main deck here. Alright, so Carlos Romão, world champion. Carlos Romão played the same style of deck that many people at this year's World Championships chose to play. Blue-black Pschatog. He simply played his version better than everyone else played theirs. Romão, known as Jabba to his friends, was a perfect 6-0 during Swiss portion of the tournament, posting a stunning 12-0 game record. The 20-year-old native of Sao Paulo, Brazil, has been widely regarded as one of the best players in South America. His deck tried to stay alive long enough to play Upheaval while floating mana to replay Pschatog on the same turn. Very nice. Okay. There. So let's start with the sideboard. We have Coffin Purge, art by Pete Ventures. This is from Odyssey. For a black, it's an instant. Remove target card in a graveyard from the game, and then flashback for a black. Very nice. Next up, we have Duress. This is the 7th edition printing with art also by Pete Ventures. For a black, you get a sorcery. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. Choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. I always want to say a non-land, non-creature card. And we have 4 copies of Duress. It's one of my favorite arts, the 7th edition art. We have good old Foff, or Fact or Fiction. This is the Invasion printing with art by Therese Nielsen. 3 and a blue instant. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library, and opponent separates those cards into 2 face-up piles. Put one pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. Being able to pick a good pile is definitely a skill. Next up we have Gainsay from Plane Shift with art by Roger Raup. 1 and a blue instant. Counter target blue spell. We have 1 copy. Next up there's Ghastly Demise. 3 copies. This is from Odyssey. Art by Gary Rudell. For a black, it's an instant. Destroy target non-black creature if its toughness is less than or equal to the number of cards in your graveyard. This was our version of Fatal Push back in the day. We have 3 copies. Next up, Hibernation. This is a 7th edition printing with art by Matt Kavoda. 2 and a blue instant. Return all green permanents to their owner's hands. Just absolute gut check to green decks. Except we have Mana Short. This is the 7th edition printing with art by Greg Staples. 2 and a blue instant. Tap all lands target player controls and empty his or her mana pool. Very nice. We have 1 copy. Next up, Recoil. This is the Invasion printing with art by Alan Pollock. 1 blue-black instant. Return target permanent to its owner's hand. Then that player discards a card from his or her hand. So if they have no cards in hand, you just get to get rid of that card. Worst case, it's a tough choice. And we have 1 copy. Next up, 1 copy of Slay from Plane Shift. It says art by Ben Thompson. 2 and a black instant. Destroy target green creature. It can't be regenerated. Draw a card. Just another good way of dealing with the big green stompy decks of the time. Very nice. And last up, Teferi's Response. This is one of the best ways of dealing with opposition that no one talks about. And was fantastic at the time. This is the Invasion printing with art by Scott Bailey. 1 and a blue instant. Counter target spell or ability an opponent controls that targets a land you control. If a permanent's ability is countered this way, destroy that permanent, draw 2 cards. Everyone forgets that that's a good way of dealing with really obnoxious stuff, like opposition. Alright, next up we have the main deck. We have Cephalid Coliseum. 2 copies. This is the Odyssey printing with art by John Avon. Taps for a blue and deals 1 damage to you. And then if you have Threshold, taps for a blue and tap, sacrifice it. To have target player draw 3 cards, then discard 3 cards from his or her hand. This is a great way of just ending games if your opponent has only a few cards left. It's a great way of powering up Pschatog. That just all around good stuff. Because just using the threshold ability on this is the same as giving Pschatog +2/+2. But we have 2 copies. The math for Pschatog is always a lot of fun. Darkwater Catacombs. This is from Odyssey. I believe we have 1 copy. Yep, we have 1 copy. Filters a colorless, or a generic, into blue-black. This has art by Monty Michael Moore. Except we have 10 Islands. This is the 7th edition printing with Scott Bailey's art. Invasion printing with Tony Sakudlo. Odyssey art by Alan Pollock. 7th edition Rob Alexander art. Odyssey Ben Thompson art. 7th edition John Avon art. Invasion Therese Nielsen art. Odyssey Larry Elmore art. 7th edition Tony Sakudlo art. Odyssey Rob Alexander art. And we have Salt Marsh. This is the Invasion printing, art by Jerry Tiratilli. Comes into play tapped, and then taps for a blue or a black. We have 4 copies of Salt Marsh. Except we have Swamp. This is the... or 3 swamps? 3 swamps, yes. This is the Odyssey printing with art by Arnie Sweckel. Odyssey printing with art by Rob Alexander. And the Odyssey printing with art by Alan Pollock. Except Underground River. This is a 7th edition art with... or a 7th edition printing with art by Andrew Goldhawk. Taps for a colorless, and then taps for a blue or a black, and deals 1 damage to you. This is currently standard legal. All of the Banelands are currently standard legal. Pretty nice. We have 4 copies of Underground River. Next up, Nightscape Familiar. From Plane Shift, art by Jeff Easley, or Isley. I believe it's Easley. 1 and a black for a 1/1 zombie. Blue spells and red spells you play cost 1 less to play. 1 and a black, regenerate Nightscape Familiar. It's a good, sticky defensive card that makes your other stuff cheaper. We have 4 copies of Nightscape Familiar. Then, Smiley Boy, the grinning menace, Psychotog himself, with that classic art by Edward P. Beard. This is an uncommon from Odyssey that just absolutely defined the format at the time. 1 blue-black for a 1/2 a Tog. Discard a card from your hand to give it +1/+1 until end of turn, or remove 2 cards from your graveyard from the game to give it +1/+1 until end of turn. This is the card that Psychic Frog, that has been a menace in Legacy and Legacy, Vintage, and Modern for the last year or so, just under a year, is named after and is designed after. So, one of my favorite cards of all time. We have 4 copies. Of course, with that classic Edward P. Beard Jr. art. 4 copies. Next up, we have 3 copies of Chainer's Edict. Pretty sure it's... yep, 3 copies of Chainer's Edict from Torment. This is the Ben Thompson art. 1 and a black. Sorcery. Target player sacrifices a creature, and then you can flash it back for 5 black. Just a good way of getting around protection. Next up, Circular Logic, also from Torment. This has art by Anthony S. Waters. 2 and a blue, instant, counter target spell unless its controller pays 1 for each card in your graveyard. The more important part is Madness for a blue. So you can just hold up a single blue mana if you have like a Psychotog in play to counter something. And it's a great way to protect your Psychotog. We have 3 copies of Circular Logic. Next up, Counterspell. Oh, also, funny story. For the longest time, I only had 3 copies of Circular Logic. Even though it's just an uncommon. And I had several friends that would get frustrated with me because they wanted to borrow a playset, and I only ever owned 3. Now I have, probably 100 copies, but it was very silly that I just held on to 3 copies for the longest time. Next up, we have Counterspell. This is a 7th edition art with, or 7th edition printing with art by Mark Romanowski, which I believe this has never had a black border printing, but I could be outside of the foil version, but I could be wrong about that. Blue instant counter target spell, just the classic Counterspell. And we have 4 copies. Next up, Cunning Wish from Judgment. This is art by Jim Nelson. Or Nielsen. I think it's Nelson. 2 and a blue, instant. Choose an instant card you own from outside of the game, reveal that card, and put it into your hand. Remove Cunning Wish from the game. Now, at one point, before Exile existed, you could actually Cunning Wish for Cunning Wish. And that was a good way to build storm count for stuff. It doesn't really work that way anymore because this does go to Exile instead of outside of the game. But that was before the Exile Zone actually existed. In a competitive sense, this would get things out of your sideboard. And we have 3 copies of Cunning Wish. Next up, Deep Analysis from Torment. Art by Darren Bader. 3 and a blue, sorcery, target player draws 2 cards, and then flashback, 1 and a blue, pay 3 life. This is a fantastic, fantastic draw engine. So much so that we still see it played in Pauper and Premodern even today. And we have 3 copies. Next up, Factor Fiction again. This is the Invasion printing, art by Therese Nielsen. 3 and a blue, instant, reveal the top 5 cards of your library. An opponent separates them into 2 face-up piles, put 1 pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. Either way, this just feeds Pschatog. Most of the time, it's going to end up with this plus 2 or 3 other cards in the graveyard, and then 2 or 3 cards into your hand, which is, 4 damage out of Pschatog at the very least. Upwards of 5 in some scenarios. But this led to the saying FOF, or EOT FOF FTW, or end of turn FOF for the win. We have 3 copies of the main deck. Next up, we have Memory Lapse. This is the 7th edition printing with art by Tristan Elwell. 1 in a blue, instant, counter target spell, put it on top of its owner's library instead of into that player's graveyard. In a lot of instances, this is a time walk, especially if your opponent is empty-handed into a clear board. So, we have 3 Memory Lapse. And keeping with the theme of just making your opponent's plays feel completely futile, we have Repulse. This is the Invasion printing with art by Aaron Boyd. 2 and a blue, instant, return target creature to its owner's hand, draw a card. I love the flavor text on this. You aren't invited. And we have 4 copies of Repulse. And then the star after Pschatog, Good Old Upheaval. So it's also from Odyssey. Art by Kev Walker. 4 blue, sorcery. Return all permanents to their owner's hands. That includes lands. So ideally you want to get to where you have 9 mana available. 8 if you have 7 or 8 if you have a couple Nightscape Familiars out. To be able to play this and then drop Pschatog and beat down with Pschatog from there. But we have 2 copies of Upheaval. Very nice. And that was Carlos Romão's Pschatog deck that won the World Championships in Sydney, Australia in 2002. Still an absolute classic list. This ended up getting ported into Extended for several years, and this deck was a menace. I remember getting so many different judge calls for these decks over the years, and I personally loved playing them. Man, I miss this. I really miss decks like this. Alright, thank you for joining me on this adventure. As always, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff for the algorithm. It really helps us out, and I really appreciate it. We are growing. We just hit 1,000 subscribers. I'm super excited about that and all of what that brings. So, if you're not subscribed, please consider it. If you are, thanks for joining us so far. As always, until next time, stay awesome, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.